Practical wisdom for modern witches with your host, the Witch of Lupin Hollow.
Good morning, modern witches. Welcome back to the Witch of Lupin Hollow YouTube channel. I am pretty excited because we're having our first warm springtime day. It's been a pretty wet winter here in Northern California, you may have heard. We've had quite a bit of flooding, lots of torrential rain. It's been bad by our standards at least. And we are finally having some warm, sunny weather, and spring has arrived. So today I want to talk about spring morning routines, because springtime is the perfect time to kind of recommit and reevaluate what you're doing in your spiritual practice. You know, the moon and the sun run on similar cycles. They just run on different time frames. So for the moon, we are pretty familiar with that one, right? It goes from the new to the waxing to the full to the waning phases. And each of those phases has a particular energy that goes along with it. The sun does the same thing in terms of the seasons. So we go from the new moon phase, which is winter, to the waxing moon phase, which is spring, to the full moon phase, which is summer, and then the waning phase, which is fall. So spring is that waxing energy. Spring is when everything is growing and blooming and, we're getting excited about things. There's a stirring of life from the earth. And that is an energy that witches like me, like you, we tend to really connect with, because this is the time of year when we can really see the fertile abundance of the earth. So in terms of your own spiritual practice, what does that mean? Well, I think that any season, the beginning of the season, is the perfect time to evaluate your practice. What have you been doing? What's been working? What hasn't been working? Where are you at? What in your spiritual practice needs to adapt to suit the way that your lifestyle evolves with each of the seasons? So today I'm sharing 6 elements of a magical springtime morning routine, because I think that morning routines are the perfect place to start with this. I am not a morning person at all. I do not like to get up. I do not like to get up early. I don't like to do much in the mornings. And my morning routine used to be, I rolled out of bed about 25 minutes before I had to go to work. And I brushed my teeth and I got dressed and I ate an Eggo in the car. I didn't even eat it on my way out the door. I ate it in the car, and I'll be real, I still do this. And that was my morning. I had no grounding or centering practice whatsoever. And when I finally started really trying to implement a morning routine, I realized that it's not just about, getting up hours before you need to leave or go about your day and, going through this complicated practice. It's about doing the things that help you feel centered and grounded so that you can start your day off on the right spiritual foot. So my morning routine, I wake up, I roll over and grab my journal off the nightstand, I write down my dreams, then I get up and brush my teeth, I make a cup of tea, I light some candles, I pull a card for the day, I write that down, and occasionally I'll incorporate a few other elements if I really have time, but those are the most important things. It takes me, 10 minutes. So I get up, 45 minutes before I have to go to work instead of 25 minutes. And maybe I actually eat breakfast, in my kitchen like a human person instead of in the car. But that's debatable. I might still eat it in the car, right? But having that spiritual morning practice really helps me to start the day off with that as my focus instead of focusing on, oh my God, I'm running late. Even if I am running late, at least I feel more grounded and centered about it. So having a morning ritual, I think, is super important whether or not you're a morning person. And morning is relative. When you get up, have some sort of practice that you do at the beginning of your day. So with that said, I think that it's important to think about, how does that practice need to evolve as the seasons change? So my first suggestion here, my first element of a magical morning routine is to light some candles or to bring light in some other way into your practice, because here in the US, or at least most of the US, we've just started daylight savings time. So daylight savings is great because we get more light at the end of the day. So the sun sets an hour later. So we'll be able to, stay out later. We'll be able to, do some gardening when we get home from work. That's the thing I'm really excited about. But it does mean that the sun rises an hour later too. So as we start to get further into spring and summer, it'll start to be lighter, right? But right now for March, it's pretty dark in the mornings. We had just gotten used to the sun coming up a little bit earlier, and now here it's, not coming up until after 7 a.m. again. So bringing some light into your spiritual practice is a really great way to offset that. Lighting candles for me is a really spiritual experience. Just, lighting the match, putting it to the wick, that whole process is just very grounding for me. But you could also use, a salt lamp or a moon lamp like this one I have behind me. Anything that just, you feel connected to that can bring some light into your life, especially if you have to get up really early. Maybe you're even leaving in the dark to go to work right now. That's not a fun experience. So bring some light into your practice as a reminder that the sun is returning, even if it doesn't really feel like it right now. Okay, so number 2 is, and this is, I always say this at pretty much any season, but take some time to look outside and notice that the seasons are changing. It's so easy in, our modern lives to not even notice, to say, oh, it's spring. I didn't even notice, like the flowers are blooming. Something that I do on my morning commute is there's a couple of spots that I know because I've, worked in the same place for a long time. There's a few spots I know the daffodils always start blooming. And so they usually start mid to late February. They were a little late this year because of all the rain. So, the first couple weeks of February, I start to notice, I start to look at those places consciously and wait for the flowers to bloom. And I'm never disappointed because they do tend to bloom in the same places because they are bulbs, so they come back. And knowing where those spots are that I know the flowers are going to start popping up, it's so powerful. It's such an awesome experience. It's just this little moment in the middle of my drive to work. And I can look over and say, nope, they're not there yet. Nope, they're not there yet. Oh, I see green shoots. Oh, I see buds. And then, a few days later, all of a sudden there's a field of flowers where there was just, green grass a few days earlier. Those kinds of experiences are, what keep me grounded and connected to my practice. So, take a look outside your window. Just whatever nature it is that you can see, even if you live in a city, in an urban area, there's probably at least one tree that you can see from a window in your house. And you can track the seasons by whatever it is that you can see. You can, watch the seasons come and go. So take notice of it. Every day, make your coffee or your tea and sit at your kitchen table or in bed or at your altar and look out that window and notice what's different. You could journal about that, or you can just take notice, just be conscious of it. One thing that you can do for spring in particular is write down the temperature. So get a little temperature gauge and put it outside your window in a spot that's not too sunny, not too shady. And start noting down the temperature this time of year. And so you can slowly start to watch it creep up, especially if you're in an area that's still, having a lot of rain, having a lot of snow. You can start to notice more and more warmer days as they come along. And you can start to realize that spring really is coming, even if it doesn't always feel like it. It's always there. It's under the surface. And so taking note in that small way can be really powerful. I do that. I don't actually write it down, but I have a temperature gauge out my kitchen window, and I love to notice, oh, we're starting to be in the 60s. We're out of the 50s finally. Okay, number 3 is start incorporating seasonal herbs and flowers into your practice. So my mom is a florist, and I grew up in her flower shop. And I can tell you that flowers really do make people happy. Flowers bring life to a space. So, if you can get real flowers, from your local florist, or, if you can pick some somewhere, having a bouquet of flowers on your table or on your altar is a great way to connect with spring. Maybe the ultimate way to connect with spring, because you're bringing in that little bit of springtime from the outdoors. Of course, if you have allergies or you can't have flowers in the house for some reason, a painting of flowers or even silk flowers, totally acceptable. But having that energy and life in the house is just so powerful. And in particular, flowers, fruits, vegetables, in our modern world, we have access to pretty much whatever we want, whenever we want it. Because we import things from the southern hemisphere to the north when they're out of season. We grow things in greenhouses. So we can access these things most of the year, but they're not the same. Having grown up in that flower shop, I can tell you that a fresh seasonal flower that is in its true season from a local grower, there's nothing like it. A fresh freesia or a fresh tulip, my favorite. There's really nothing like them truly fresh. And so if you can, find a source for that, just once in the season, bring a really fresh local bouquet of flowers into your house. That's a way to really connect with what is real, what is really a part of the season, what is, not just our, sort of modern invention of being able to enjoy things all the time, which, sort of takes away some of their power. So seasonal springtime herbs and flowers, certainly you can also use these sorts of materials, plants, in tea, in charm bags, hang a bundle of fresh herbs in the shower, so you can start your day with springtime scents. Whatever it is that you feel connected to, incorporating those seasonal elements into your house and into your practice is obviously a great way to connect with the season. Okay, number 4, and this one is a big reminder for me too, is to incorporate more movement into your spiritual practice. So like I said, spring is the waxing time of the year. It's the time for growth and movement and energy. It's when we are kind of the most active, although we tend to think of summer as that. Summer is culmination, right? Summer is the fullness and abundance before the harvest. Spring is when we are, we're growing, we're taking action, we're moving towards something. So this is the perfect time to, start to incorporate more movement in a spiritual way. I think a great way to do this is to incorporate sun salutations into your morning routine. But you could do, a morning run or any kind of stretches, anything that, gets your body moving, gets you feeling connected in the morning, because, I'm not good about this. Like I said, not a morning person at all. And so I don't like to get up and go work out. I know a lot of people do. It helps them wake up in the morning. And maybe you're already doing something like this, but even if that's, you're not like that, you're like me, you don't want to get up and move, you want to get up and drink your tea and be left alone. Incorporating some kind of movement into your practice is such a great way to honor the spring energy, to say, okay, this isn't maybe what I normally want to be doing, but I'm honoring the sun. I'm honoring the return of light and growth and movement. So that's another good way to incorporate, the spring energies into your morning routine. Number 5 is to rededicate yourself to new or returning practices. So like I said, I always, I get out of my practices in January and February after the holidays. I always think that I'm going to be able to get back to everything, and January is going to be a time to get rededicated and back to my routines and exactly what I want it to be, but it's never that way. I think because January and February are such a lull period for me, I just cram them full of things that, I'm free, I can take care of this, I can do that errand, I can go to all of these birthday parties, because I know a lot of Pisces. whatever it is, I always seem to have no time for myself in January and February. And so March, the spring equinox, this is the time to reevaluate, to say, okay, where am I off track? What do I want to be doing that I'm not doing right now? So spring is it's the time for rebirth, right? It's a time of energy. It's a time of renewal and fertility. So honor that by committing to whatever it is that you want to be in your life that's not currently. So, maybe you want to study something new. You want to know more about tarot, or you want to become a certified astrologer. Or maybe you want to take an herbal class from, the local botanical gardens. Or maybe it's not about studying. Maybe you want to, have more movement in your practice. You want to start going to yoga classes or go for that morning run. Make spring a fresh start. Recommit to whatever practices you have either gotten off track with or that you've never really gotten started with. This is the time. And think about that in terms of your general practice as well as your morning routine. So, if you've gotten out of the habit of having a morning ritual, don't beat yourself up. Just recommit to it. Say, spring is a fresh start. But you can also think of it, in larger terms as well. All right, number 6 is the most important. I say it again and again and again. Number 6 is just to remain mindful. Really the most important thing you can do with each new season is to be conscious of it. Be mindful that the season is changing, that it affects your life, that it affects the way you engage with your spiritual practice. A lot of times we think that our spiritual practice exists in a vacuum, but it doesn't. It's not separate from our mundane lives. It's not separate from the world around us. Our spiritual lives are a big part of our reality. And our reality is a big part of our spiritual lives. These things are not, they're interrelated. They're not disconnected. So, remain mindful. If you do get off track, it's okay. Just get back to it. Get back to whatever it is that works for you. Don't feel like you have to commit to something that doesn't work for you. If working with the seasons isn't really your main thing, then, don't worry too much about it, but just consider how the season itself actually physically affects you. Does it change your routine? Is your schedule different? Are you going to be able to do different things or not do things because the season has changed? That's important to think about too. Is it that, you want to connect with the seasons, but you don't know how? Well, maybe that's a good place to start. Commit yourself to some research, commit yourself to some experiments. Just remain mindful of what is and is not working for you and be willing to adapt and evolve with the seasons because, spring is all about rebirth. If the earth didn't evolve, then we would never have spring. So we have to evolve too. Okay, so this has been my 6 elements of your magical spring morning routine. I hope that you enjoyed, and I encourage you to comment below. Tell me about your spring routine. Tell me how spring affects your spiritual practice. What is it that you're doing to honor spring as it as it's sprung? What are you doing to connect with spring right now? Is that something you're struggling with, or something you're excited for? Comment below. Make sure to also like the video and subscribe so you can be notified of new videos because I put one out every week. And I will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.